Hey guys, welcome to the Dude Seriously Show. I'm Johnathan.
Charles Conklin.
And we're here today to talk about Iron Man 2. Now this is the third film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe in order of release, and the second film in the Iron Man franchise. We just sat down to watch the film, and we're on the road to Infinity War, so of course we've got to talk about it. What'd you think of Iron Man 2?
In a word, pretty funny.
Yeah, man, this movie was hysterical. Iron Man 2 gets a lot of flack. People say it doesn't hold up well, it's not consistent, and in tonight's viewing, I wanted to be a little extra critical of that because everybody is, rewatching these films to gear up for Infinity War, and so I wanted to see how does this really hold up. And I gotta be honest, this is probably the most fun I've had watching this film, but I see where the criticism comes in.
Sure.
Everything up until the race with where Whiplash comes and attacks,
Right.
Everything up to there is on par with the best of the MCU, and I'm saying that definitively. I'm on the record. Haters gonna hate. At that race, I see where things start to falter. Then it comes back right after that.
Right.
And then it's the party that things start to come off again when Stark is drunk, and then things come back again after that.
Right.
So this movie is a roller coaster.
It's very, very funny. I mean, Robert Downey Jr., always hilarious. You know, his antagonist, one of the chief antagonists, is very much his equal comedically, and that's Sam Rockwell as Justin Hammer.
Who, while we're talking about him, at one time was being considered to play the role of Tony Stark.
And I think as we were watching the film, we both agreed that I could see him in the role, but Robert Downey's definitely the better choice.
I love Tony Stark. Tony loves me. We're not competitors.
Yeah, it's the first MCU film of the first three that really world builds, right? The
definitely.
first Iron Man is foundational.
Right.
The Incredible Hulk builds on that, but as we talked about last week, there was some pre-production mess there that really threw off the mojo of getting too involved and not being involved enough. So that was there. This film is like, hey, boom, we're going to drop it all on you. We get the first appearance of Black Widow, Agent Coulson, Nick Fury, Iron Man, War Machine, a reference to Captain America, a reference to Thor, and a reference to Hulk. So we get literally every main player teased or shown in this movie, which is just, name me a better world-building film as far as home runs.
That's really the whole point of this film, I think, is to have more fun with a character that the country fell in love with in the first movie, and kind of build the universe and set the stage for what's coming down the road with Avengers.
There's a reference to Thor in this film where Nick Fury is one-on-one with Stark.
Contrary to your belief, you are not the center of my universe. I have bigger problems than you in the Southwest region to deal with.
Of course, that's Thor's hammer, so it just goes to show how things are going on. We don't get those tongue-in-cheek references as much these days because the universe is so big, but at this time in the MCU, it's fun to go back and look and see how small things were.
And then Thor gets another reference, later on in the movie with Coulson, because he's been reassigned, and he goes to the land of enchantment, and what state was that? I'm sorry, I'm blanking.
New Mexico.
New Mexico, the land of enchantment. So
yeah, you got half of it right.
Yeah. Well, it's better than none.
The film has a great intro. We see the last couple minutes from the first Iron Man film, and then we see Ivan Vanko in Russia watching. And so it really helps ground the film and show, that these events that are happening in little pockets of the world really do have ripple effects.
Right.
And I just think that that's a really interesting way to start world building right off the bat for this movie.
It was really cool to, basically pick up where the last one left off and kind of spin it from a different point of view. From there, we reconnect with Tony, and he's actually in the Iron Man suit, and, there's AC/DC playing, and you gotta love that, and if you don't, there's something wrong with you. He's flying, and he's got the fireworks, and then he lands, gives the superhero landing, and in front of an adoring crowd. I mean, it was just a really awesome way to just reconnect with a character that we fell in love with just back in Iron Man 1.
You weren't crazy about Whiplash. I really like Whiplash, but what didn't you care for?
Well, Mickey Rourke's a world-class actor. And he was awesome in the movie. It's just that I don't know. I just when he shows up at the race and he's got the whips, and the whips were really cool. I just didn't like the look because there was nothing protective. There was no protective armor. It was just kind of, whipping around and I mean, he probably could have took his own head off.
True.
Yeah.
I'm gonna turn that around though, because I think that him being this ragtag version of Iron Man really helps show that not everybody can be Tony Stark. This man might have similar intellect, but there's only one, and I think that that's important. But also, as far as the mobility of the whips, not being in Iron Man armor or something even bulkier, lets him really, get the mobility that he needs.
That makes sense.
For the record, that is how you do a whip.
No, that's how you do it?
That's how you do it. Yeah, you just kind of chicken wing your arm up.
Kind of like the Bushwhackers.
Whoa! Yay!
Don't try this at home.
Yeah.
I think that that's another thing that plays into the characterization, because at the end we see him in that full armor, and ultimately that's his downfall, is that, he fights and then they do the optic blast thing with the optic blast. That's Cyclops.
That's Cyclops.
They do the hands blast that
The
we saw
hands.
earlier, which is interesting.
Yeah.
It's set up earlier and then it comes back.
Of course, we have the late great Gary Shandling as the senator, who's he's known more as a comedic actor, and here he is there's a comedic edge to the role, but is more of a serious character.
Could you say that he was stern?
I could see, yeah.
His character's name is Senator Stern.
Yeah, that's.
But it's interesting because that character we later learn is Hydra.
This nice pen. Thank you. Come here. Hail Hydra.
Right.
And so he is trying to get this armor from Tony for the government's use, but little do we know that there are certain politicians, certain characters who have been corrupted by Hydra, and so really Senator Stern is trying to get the Iron Man armor for Hydra, which is something really interesting looking back all of these years.
It's just, another example of them building the universe in this film, which is really like the whole point of the film.
So Tony Stark, there's a really famous scene in this film where Tony Stark has sunglasses on and he's laying up in a donut for a donut shop. And we hear Nick Fury.
Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to exit the donut.
And then we get a cut and they're inside and they're sitting there and Nick Fury's just grinding, his Sam Jackson lines into him. And it feels like a toned down version of Pulp Fiction.
I really was waiting for him to just say, hey, what do they call a Big Mac in France,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, it's a Whopper in France, right? It was a great and beautiful scene, the way it played out. And also in that scene, we have the reveal that Natalie Rushman is actually the Black Widow.
Yeah, and that was great. It was cool to see her in this film, and she is just absolutely amazing. Because earlier in the film, we saw her come in as the notary. So to see her come in this spy tactical gear, if you didn't know, you would have the same face Tony did. And he handles it so great. You're fired, It was cool. It's like he's almost not surprised, but he is, and just classic Tony.
And Scarlett is great as the Widow. She's perfect. My only complaint, and I know I get it, the film starts, she's undercover. But in that scene where they reveal that she's the Widow, I was waiting for that Russian accent, and it never happened. That's the only complaint.
Because from the comics, she does have a Russian accent. I think I would be annoyed with it. I mean, can you imagine in like Avengers, whenever the space worm's coming at them, I don't see how that's a party, that sort of thing. My Russian accent is terrible, and I think that Scarlett Johansson's would have been as well.
Oh, I don't know. I think she could have done it pretty well.
I mean, I'm not discounting her as an actress. I'm just saying that I think it would have gotten old. Or how about that famous line in Age of Ultron? Veep, veep. I mean, come on. It would have been so bad in certain places.
That was that. Well, maybe, but no.
Yeah, and I know I'm picking on two of Black Widow's worst lines of them all.
Right.
But my point is that she's got lots of fans the way she is. She's just fine. So
I can't argue with that.
Something I found really interesting in this film is that when they're in the, Tony's being confronted by the government, Justin Hammer drops the line saying, there are some threats that not even Tony Stark can protect the world from.
I love to leave my door unlocked when I leave the house. But this ain't Canada. We live in a world of grave threats that Mr. Stark will not always be able to foresee.
And that sets up so much for not only Tony's character, but where we're going,
Right.
because we see in Avengers, the world finds out that they're not alone. So Tony Stark, in retaliation, in Iron Man 3, has been working on these suits. He's developed post-traumatic stress disorder, and his character is just altered by this fact that maybe he can't protect the world. So in Age of Ultron, he creates the Iron Legion, and then, of course, Ultron to protect the world, and that backfires mega.
Right.
And then in Civil War, he comes full circle back to saying, okay, maybe I should give my suit over to the government. Whereas everything started in Iron Man 2, and he said, nah, I'm my own guy. If you ever need me, call me. But that's not the case.
Because I'm your nuclear deterrent. It's working. We're safe. America is secure. You want my property? You can't have it. But I did you a big favor. I have successfully privatized world peace.
Yeah.
So it's funny to see how these little things happen in a character's life, and it brings them full circle.
I think that this movie is definitely its own place because, and it's more enjoyable having seen where the character goes. It makes it more fun to watch, and I think that maybe that's what we experienced when we watched it tonight. Is that we've seen where Tony goes, we've seen his evolution, and so it's kind of nice to go back and see the roots. Once upon a time, I was married, and this was actually the last movie I went to go see with my wife at that time.
What does that tell you?
Yeah, that tells you how long ago that was too. But anyhow, there's this great scene with Justin Hammer where he's, talking about how cool this gun is. Oh, it's not cool enough for you? Well, how about this? And, it keeps going on and bigger guns, and then he gets to what he likes to call his masterpiece, the Cubans, baby. He's talking about how this little missile here is going to bust the bunker under the bunker that you just busted, and, it's going to completely elegant and destructive all at the same time, and he calls it the ex-wife. Hilarious little joke there. I laughed really hard, and this woman that came to the movie with me gives me the dirtiest look, and it was foreshadowing, I think, where my life was headed, and it's nice to. It's actually kind of funny to look back and have a good laugh at it all now.
So you hear that, kids? Iron Man 2 is a home wrecker.
It is, but you know what? We love you anyways, Robert Downey Jr. You're the man.
Even if you do ruin marriages.
That's right.
So the last battle of this movie is the first time we see two Avengers side by side. Iron Man, War Machine, and in some ways Black Widow. She's off doing her own thing.
She's helping out. She's the man in the chair.
Yeah, and she has that badass scene.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
It's so awesome. She takes down all those guys. And then, of course, Happy is
wailing
on this guy.
on the one guy for about 20 minutes and then looks up and she's taking down 20.
So it's cool. The first time we see two Avengers fighting side by side. Great moment. It's, the bad guys are just generic robots, so it's not that exciting, but it is cool to see them side by side shooting guns over each other's shoulders.
I think a lot of that fighting sequence is the coolest part of the movie because, you're just seeing them level, and they're not killing anybody because they are stupid robots. Which I guess that isn't the last time we see them just kill stupid robots, so foreshadowing maybe. According to one particular actor, there was another Avenger on site that day. Tom Holland says that the little kid in the Iron Man mask is Peter Parker. And I don't know if that's been confirmed or collaborated by any of the higher-ups, but it's a cute theory. I can't say I buy into it because it just doesn't seem plausible.
That'd be like in a DCEU film. If some little kid that ends up becoming Green Lantern someday is like, oh, I'm the kid that Bruce Wayne tucked under his shoulder when Superman was destroying my hometown. It'd be like, really? You got like 500 million people that could possibly be.
That wasn't Green Lantern. That was Robin. Sorry.
So that wraps up Iron Man 2 for us. I had a lot of fun watching this film again. It's a little higher on my MCU ranking, so when we get closer to Infinity War and we've seen all these films, I think I'm going to be surprised that it raised the bar a little bit for me.
It's going to jump a few tiers.
Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. This is the Dude Seriously Show. Tune in next week for our Road to Infinity War series, where we'll be reviewing Thor, and I think it's going to be a worthy interview, and it'll be a good time. So guys, thank you again so much, and Dude Seriously.